What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So I just got out of a screening for Wicked, which is a film that's directed by John M. Chu and is apparently a part 1 of a part 2 movie series, I guess. And Wicked is a movie that, honestly, I just went to see out of sheer curiosity. But as I started, as the release date started approaching, it started getting really good reviews. I was like, okay, this, I still don't think it's going to be all that good, but it might not be as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, really surprising, because I wasn't the only one that watched the trailer and thought this was going to be terrible. Almost everybody I knew watched the trailer and thought that movie was going to be bad. And then, like, when Cynthia Erivo started speaking, people started hating her. Especially with her comments in regard to like how the fans like tweaked the Wicked poster to properly represent like the homage they were going for with the Broadway play. She said some crazy shit like how it's like the most disgusting thing she's ever seen, only because they hid her face, and it came off really narcissistic, and overall she seems like a really unpleasant, like, self-absorbed person, to be honest with you. So like, with all that, like, I thought, like, okay, everybody's gonna hate this movie, but people are really, really loving it, and critics are loving it, and I'm like, all right, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something here. And full disclaimer, like, even though I'm not the biggest fan of musicals, I actually love the original Wizard of Oz. I give that movie a 10 out of 10. I think it's just delightful, and I could watch the movie again and again and just be in love with it. I think what that movie accomplished, especially for the time, is pretty incredible. Aside from some of the, like, straight up, like, abuse and torture a lot of the actors had to go through. But yeah, so now after watching Wicked, how do I feel about this movie as a whole? Let me just say this. I went into this movie thinking it was gonna be dog shit. And, I mean, it's okay, I guess. And look, when I say it's okay, I guess, that is a huge step up from me thinking it was going to be dog shit. Like, this was still, like, I don't think this is, I don't think it's a horrible movie, but I don't really think it's a good movie. And the reason why that is because it is just way too basic and way too by the numbers for me to come out of this movie and tell you guys that it's good. It's just, and look, I understand, like, a lot of people that are watching this that like really like the movie, which is probably be a lot of people. Y'all are probably thinking in your head, I don't want to. Why should I have to listen to what this loser neckbeard says about this movie? You know what? You're right. You don't have to listen to what I say. Keep doing you. If you really love this, if you really love the theater shit, you love the musical shit, like, that's your thing. You do you. Keep enjoying it. I know you're going to anyway. And, it's just, for me personally, there is just too much here that I just didn't find all that really original, all that compelling. Didn't really subvert my expectations in a lot of ways, besides it not being dog shit. And overall, it's just like, it's a competently made musical. I feel like it didn't go above and beyond. It didn't do anything unpredictable. It's just like, it's okay. And here's the thing. There's things that I like about it, right? I mean, there was a section of this movie, well, first of all, let me just say, it took me a long time to even remotely get into this, right? Like, the first 30, 40 minutes, I was like, fuck. But there hit a point, I think somewhere in the second act, where Ariana Grande, what's her name in this movie? Galinda, and the witch character Alphaba, something like that. there's like this, they have this actually, like, in terms of conflict and emotion, it was actually compelling. There's like this ballroom scene they have together, which I thought was like a well-written, well-acted moment. I was like, this is actually, I feel emotional investment here. And like, that was honestly like the, like, hands down, the best scene of the entire movie. It's like the movie peaked like 40 minutes in, and it never really even remotely reached that potential it had. But I did like that moment, and I liked probably like the 15 minutes that happened after that, because that's like the moment where, like, you know, the two main characters like actually connect, and we get to see more of their dynamic together. So at that point I was like, okay, this, I'm actually kind of into this a little bit. And then there's another thing I liked, which is honestly Ariana Grande. Like, I thought Ariana Grande in this movie is entertaining, and like, I bought her character. Like, I buy Ariana Grande as that, like, you know, preppy, popular, ditzy, obnoxious girl. And she's actually really good at it, and it's entertaining. Whenever she was doing her shtick, I felt entertained by the movie. I think like her character and her performance is a huge reason why, like, I found the moments where it was entertaining, like, actually entertaining. So I'll give her props. And like, again, I think the singing talent across the board, even with, as you know, obnoxious and unpleasant I think Cynthia is, I think that she obviously has vocal talent, and she delivers that well. And even her performance isn't bad. It's just not like entertaining. I don't find her character all that compelling. But I mean, she gives a good performance in the movie. And like, look, a lot of people are complimenting like the set design and everything, and like, look, I can see why. Like, it's very vibrant. You can tell there's a lot of detail that went into the world, and the world building and the craft and everything. But honestly, like, for me, it just felt very phony. Like, even though it looks pretty and vibrant, I felt like if I poked it, it would just fall over. You know what I mean? And you know, and then on top of that, there's all, you know, there's a shitload of CGI in this movie. That's like very obvious CGI, and it has just this very obvious like digital look to it that personally I'm just not really a fan of. Just not really. I don't think this movie like looks gorgeous or looks beautiful. Like, and I've heard some people say that about it. I would never say that about this movie personally. Yeah, I guess it's colorful and shit, but a lot of it just screams like phony. So it's hard for me to even give it that compliment. But I mean, look, the song, like, even though I'm not a big fan of musicals, I think there's good music here. Not all of it, but I think there's some good songs here. I think that Loathing song was kind of cute and quirky, and I liked it. I like the kind of like the beats it was hitting. But there are music. There's some numbers in here to me that are just like that are completely unnecessary. There's at least 3 that I found not only was it not even needed because it didn't really say much of anything about the character, and if it did, it's something that you could have done like in 2 seconds and not drag out a 5-minute runtime. And also it's also too long. Like, there's some tracks that go on for like 5 minutes, one for like 10 minutes, where it's not really saying much. Like, there's a scene where you know, Cynthia's character is feeling hopeful because Michelle Yeoh's character like picks her to be in her class or something. There's a whole like number dedicated to her just feeling happy about it and feeling hopeful about it. I'm like, why do we need a whole number here? Like, okay, maybe a few singing notes, a few singing moments, okay, but why do we need a whole ass number here? It just seems like it's just dragging the runtime, which, by the way, holy shit, I can't believe I haven't talked about this yet. This movie's basically 3 hours fucking long. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Sorry, it does not need to be that long at all. Way too fucking long of a movie. And again, it's really, I think, the music that drags it way longer than it should. It's almost the same with like Joker 2. Like that movie it felt really long because of all the music that was in it. And yeah, like I really felt the pace. I really felt the runtime. It was just getting real. It was, and again, since the plot and everything is it feels, again, by the numbers, very basic. A lot of the most crucial things in it were very predictable, and it's kind of like it hits a point where you kind of are just familiar with all the beats of the movie. You're really just waiting for them to happen and just waiting to see how they execute these things. And there's nothing really all that special about the execution. It's not all that stylistic. It's just competently made. Like, you can tell John Chu knows how to make a competent musical. But that's the biggest compliment that I can really give it in that regard. So yeah, I mean, look, there's things about it that I guess surprised me that I liked. Like, I didn't think there was even going to be one single scene in this movie that I felt some kind of emotional investment, but I did. So it surprised me a little bit there. And again, I found Ariana Grande's performance like kind of funny and entertaining. And whenever like it was her, like I was like, all right, I'm buying her character and I'm really enjoying it. But I just feel like this movie, it just kind of hits too many of the same beats that you would expect. And again, it's a part one of a part two. Maybe, honestly, I think part two would be perhaps a more interesting movie, because now that part one kind of gets all of that basic plot shit out of the way, now I think part two might have a bit more room for like some narrative ambition, a little bit more narrative creativity, you know, to kind of spice things up a bit more. I mean, people who watch the Wicked Broadway thing, they already know what the hell's gonna happen. But for me personally, I can see there being a lot more room for creativity in part two. But as far as part one, I don't know. It's just not... I mean, it impressed me in the sense that it wasn't complete dog shit. That's always good. But it's still not... It still didn't impress me enough to be like, oh yeah, this is a good movie. I can definitely recommend it. I think it is a little bit, like, I hate saying this, like, something's overhyped, but I do think, like, as an outsider or somebody, and again, I think a lot of outsiders are wondering, like, how much are they going to enjoy this movie? I can see you enjoying it as much as I did, maybe a little bit more, but not being really all that ecstatic about it. I mean, my theater, there was it was just kind of a small theater, and I saw it in 3D, because that was the only time, it was like the most convenient showtime for me. And it's funny, like it felt so real that I could feel the Hollywood producers physically reach out of the screen and take the money out of my pocket. I can't take credit for that joke. I stole that joke from somewhere, some YouTube video, I don't even remember. But anyway, yeah, I watched it in the theater. It's kind of a smallish theater, but it was packed. And some dude in the back was snoring like halfway through the movie. And then like 3 people left, maybe because of all the singing, because there's a lot of moments where it does that musical thing where like, okay, perhaps a compelling moment, and then he starts singing. And I think maybe some people got annoyed at that and they left. But I don't see people who aren't huge into musicals like loving this movie. I maybe liking it a little bit, walking out of it being like, all right, but not being like, oh, this movie's fucking amazing. But anyway, I mean, I don't know. I think that's all I pretty much got to say about it. Yeah, I don't really know if I have much more, so I guess I'll end it there. So I'll say, I'll give Wicked, and look, this rating is definitely more personal. But I'll say that I'll give Wicked a strong 5 out of 10. I can't give this a fresh rating personally because I don't really recommend it. I would never watch this movie again, ever. So, and it is one of those cases where it also is just not my kind of movie. Like, it really isn't. Like, in a lot of different ways, it is not my kind of movie. And there's just a lot of things about it that I just found like, okay, yeah, it's a movie. It's competently made, but what else? You know, especially considering like how much praise is being showered with, like, you kind of want more out of it. But that's all I'll say. Strong 5 out of 10 for me. Not sure how many of my viewers or anybody watching this video have seen it already. If you have seen it, curious to know, especially with my viewer base, I'm very curious to know if y'all are even gonna see this shit. Do y'all have interest in it? Did y'all see it already? Let me know in the comment section. Let's see how that goes. Very, very curious. But that's all I gotta say about Wicked. If you really enjoy what I had to say about the films, give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.